Hey everybody, this is Dude, and this is the Bourbon Boys Advent Tasting Podcast. We pulled together some of our favorite picks to share with you as we count down to Christmas. We hope you get a chance to taste some of these great bourbon brands this holiday season with friends and family. Until then, bourbon on.
And we're up to the next one. Next one we have on the slate is...
It's going to be Clyde May's. And as we look at these two bottles, talk about a contrast in style. The 1792 is a more, I guess, modern look.
Yeah, does feel it.
A little more decorated, where you got Clyde May, very nostalgic bottle shape, and the label, very, very much a throwback, which is what actually drew me to that originally.
Yeah, it's got a good look.
It's almost identical to TX, actually.
Yeah, the shape of the bottle.
Yep. Shape of the bottle,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And then the 1792 has got maybe more of a cognac shaped bottle. It's a little fancier French.
Yeah, kind of Crown Royalish.
Yep. Perfume.
I like it that too, of a perfume bottle.
Yeah,
it does. It's a scaled up. That would be a very expensive perfume bottle.
Or very cheap.
BFPB.
All right, so Clyde May. So what do you got? What'd you learn?
Clyde May, this is, like I said, it's a pretty nostalgic looking bottle, nice label. This is the second time I've had it. A friend of mine actually gave me both bottles, or different friends gave me the two bottles. So this one is a gift, so I always appreciate that.
As do we.
Gifts taste better.
Gifts taste better.
They do,
especially
right?
Especially
if they're somebody else's gifts.
Yeah,
there you go.
Especially from a good guy. But so Clyde May, this is the straight bourbon whiskey. A lot of folks that I started talking to, I wasn't familiar with it before, but who are familiar with it, he's got under this label an Alabama kind of original that is I think it's just a whiskey, not a bourbon, with more of an apple flavor that I think is where he really got his foothold in the business. But interesting backstory. So Clyde May was an actual person. He was born in the 1920s, around 1922, I believe. Grew up in the Depression era. Went off to the war in 1942. I think around 46, he was injured and discharged. Came back, I think, to Alabama to run the family farm. He was I guess, an average farmer at best. Never mastered that, but apparently he was really damn good at making spirits. So
that is a talent.
That is a talent, and we're thankful that he did. So he stayed on the edge of the law with that. So
that's true.
Yeah, very much so. One of the things I read said between 1950 and 1980, they estimated he would put out about 300 gallons a week.
Dang.
Holy crap.
That's a lot of...
Dang.
So...
That's a lot of fake farming.
That's a lot of fake farming. So it got him in trouble a couple of times. He did a little bit.
It's like cleaning money.
Well, in 73, he actually ended up doing about 8 months of time.
Okay.
So he was good at running. He wasn't great at it, apparently. So
got slower.
He got slower, got caught. But when he passed away in 1990, his son, kind of as a tribute to him, pursued starting to legally bottle what his dad had created. So
in 1990, I love that.
That is awesome.
I know that seems like yesterday.
It's like safe enough distance.
Exactly.
Yeah, one of their lines I read was distilled since 1946, legal since 2001.
That's great.
Okay.
That is
I wonder
great.
if he paid taxes.
Better late than never. But
admit nothing.
Yeah, it's really good. I like it. It's very smooth. The mash on it's 78% corn, 12% rye, and 10% barley.
All right, so that should be even sweeter, perhaps, than the 1792.
Yeah. The other thing they called out, which I thought was interesting, and you can kind of taste it, is they call out that it's stored in heavily charred barrels. So you don't char the inside of the barrels. Apparently they go a little longer with that, so probably get a little more richness, a little more woody out of it.
Which, in contrast to this, these go into brand new barrels.
The 1792.
Yeah, the 1792 does. Yeah, sorry, I'm pointing to this, but nobody knows what I'm pointing to.
We can see it. We got you, Kurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's give it a try.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's average farmer, hell of a spirit maker, so thank God he stayed with
But I
that.
always think about, so let me see that bottle for a second, Derek.
Not a very loud uncork.
It's not. You need to pull it up. There you go.
All right, here we go.
So every time you say the name,
Clyde May.
yeah. So who was? It's like a Western, not a thief, but a
Yeah, Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde. That's what I think of every time. Every time I hear the name of this stuff, I think of Bonnie and Clyde. Clyde May.
Yeah, it does. It does have like a sweet smell to it.
Yeah,
So do you think that's him on the bottle?
that's him.
That's
There's
so cool.
Several pictures of him on the website.
It is Prison Grays.
No, by the mailbox.
Waiting for the check.
Yep.
So where are they? So it's in Alabama?
Yeah.
It is. That's a good
Okay.
point, though. It's actually distilled in Kentucky and bottled in Florida. So
Okay.
the Alabama roots only got them so far.
Just roots.
Yep, just roots.
Okay.
So maybe is that where it started? Was crafted in Alabama?
Yes.
I love the nostalgic pictures on it.
Yeah. I do want to try the straight Alabama, the Alabama style. So it has.
What do you think?
Not bad. First sip, it's got a little burn to it. For having less rye in it, I think it's got more. At least on my palate, taste. I get a little bit more burn than the 1792.
Really?
Definitely sweet. Warms it up. I'm waiting for that charred.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a whole lot of the char. I don't know what I get for flavors. What do you taste?
I'm definitely picking up on the barrel.
You get. All right.
I am. This doesn't have as much bite to it. So if I just hold it on my tongue for a bit, like I can feel the 1792. Like it's almost like
Yeah.
my tongue's getting cold from it's not, right?
Yep.
And this feels a lot more, how do I want to describe it? Like it's got a thickness to it almost. Like
It's pretty smooth.
it is really smooth. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that's a better way to describe
Yeah.
it. But
It's about I think it's a $35, $38 bottle. So it's not a bad bottle.
Not bad.
It's
Not
out of
bad.
the mainstream, so it's a good conversation starter.
Yep.
A little less available in this area. The guy who gave it to me is down in Charlotte. I think went down in South Carolina and picked that up.
Okay.
92
good one
proof.
to add to the
It's good.
cabinet.
So you mentioned the list before. We started the list, not the remember the wish list of bourbons to try to look for.
Yep.
So we need to update that and make that available on the website.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. That's a good call. And if anyone wants to contribute to helping us achieve the list,
Yes.
send it in.
Or
Yeah,
at least
totally.
point out some new
For sure.
new stuff for us to
Yeah.
try.
Yep. Happy to try more.
I like the saying on here: "Say what you be what you say."
Keeping it simple.
Keeping it simple.
Keeping it real.
Here's to Clyde.
Here's to Clyde.
I like it.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm glad Clyde chose not to be a farmer.
Yes. Yeah, this
And,
turned out much better for us.
Yep. Followed his passion, I would say.
Yeah.
Seemed to be pretty good at that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder how much of that honestly was driven by what he really enjoyed versus what he was good at.
Yeah. And I got to think at that time, and that, I mean, think about Great Depression, Dust Bowl, farming, that was probably not an easy conversation to have with the parent folks.
If he had it at all.
If he had it at all, this is true.
I'll be on the back 40
Sure.
today.
Yes, I'll take the faraway acres.
I'm gonna go pick the corn.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, think of having to make that decision to say, I'm really good at something that perhaps you didn't want me to be.
Yeah.
And I think we all want that for our kids too, which is, do what you're excited about.
Yeah.
And it may not be the path that you would have thought of. I don't know, Dave. What do you think, David?
You guys ever? I don't know. This goes way back. A conversation I had with my father when I was finished undergrad, and massive recession. I seem to be lucky enough to graduate from any kind of education right in the middle of a recession. But I was finished school. My my wife at that time, my girlfriend, was living in Boston. And,
I was like, wife at that time. What's this all about?
my wife.
We
now,
do
my
need
girlfriend
Sarah.
at that time. Yeah, but Sarah was in Boston, Berklee College of Music, and I was staying at home, couldn't find a job. Believe it or not, I actually had money in the bank, and went to my dad and was like, "Hey, Sarah really wants me to move to Boston." And he said, "Well, what are you going to do?" I was like, "Well, the North Bennett Street School is up there."
Yeah.
And North Bennett Street School is a fine woodworking, instrument making, bookbinding school, like old master trade kind of stuff. And at that point, I was doing a lot of woodworking, and my dad, was like, "Well, Dave Rue, that's a great vocation, but it certainly isn't an occupation." And that stuck with me for a long time, and it's one of those things you mentioned, the decisions you make 10 years back are very different than the ones you do now. And so, Sarah and I often talk about what would have happened if I had just told Dad, forget it, I'm going to go. I'm going to follow my passion, right?
Yeah.
No kids, no wife, just a girlfriend.
10 years ago?
Well, no, it was much more than that. But
Okay.
anyways,
Just checking.
I would have gone up there. She would have finished at Berklee. I probably would have finished at North Bennett Street. And then who knows where we would have been. And so I always go back and kind of replay that in my head. And I took a left instead of a right. And I sometimes wonder, it's like we're wired certain ways. And for me, I'm wired to work with my hands. Yeah. And that's not what I do to put food on the table. And often what I do to put food on the table, I'm so damn tired by the weekend comes on that I don't do
What you
what
are
I was
super passionate
wired to do.
We have a
and
fifth
work with
P.
my hands. So, anyways, I mean, I do
Pooped?
Passion.
pooped.
Seriously, people.
Passion, yeah.
Passion.
Yeah.
So I think, that is one thing that, as you get older and you start, Lord knows, talking about retirement, and for me, it's always that struggle. I don't want to wait until then to have the time to be able to do what I truly love doing. And apparently years ago, I didn't have the balls to stand up and say, you know what, I am going to go after this and do something that I feel like I was truly wired to do professionally.
Right.
But again, you make the choices you make. And
So one of the things that's been liberating about the changes that sometimes are forced upon us is you get more than one shot at that. Yeah, that played out the way it did at that time.
right.
But, again, as we contemplate the turns in our life, the choices we made, sometimes we get another shot at it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so it's one of the things, again, that I like bouncing off you guys or sharing from my experiences is, there's good perspective.
Right.
And I keep saying perspective, but nobody offers to make that a P. But
We can make that a P.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not.
I think we're going to have a T-shirt pretty soon with all the P words.
all the P words.
Right.
Jeez.
We just
But but anyway, that's just one of the the things in this storyline is that perspective of change is not as scary as it once felt like it was.
right.
I think there's truth to that, right? I mean, I think we probably can all relate to this in some degree. I worked since I was 16. When I stepped out and took that break, right? That was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think you learn that. I think the greatest thing that I learned, right, in this last 2 years, year and a half, is that everything works out, right? It really does. Everything works out.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we're trained from that point when you're 16 and working that the next step has always got to be up, right?
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
how we were wired. That's how we're educated, and there's
Yep.
nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
But at some point, it's awesome to get the opportunity to be
Step aside.
step aside, whether it's your choice or others, and say,
Right.
"Oh wow, there's other ways to do this. There's other things that matter." So
Yeah.
There was I'll have to look up the name of the book, but it may have been the book Fish.
Okay.
It's like
PH.
Not PH
Another
yet.
P word.
Could be.
No, it's
I think it was just the word fish, but I'll have to check it out. And it's a story about an executive who goes into, and I found this. I was in a
I've
job.
read it.
You've read it? And tell me if this is the right book. I was going for a job interview. Had been recently laid off. 2 weeks before Christmas, 2008. So bottom of the bottom.
Merry Christmas, Derek.
Yep. And I was in a job interview shortly after that, and in the waiting room, flipping through a bunch of business magazines, and came across this article, and it was the story of the woman, I believe, in the book. And if this is the right book, let me know.
Okay.
The story goes that she was in the fish market in Seattle, and there was a saying. She was watching the fish market early in the morning, and she was watching the teams
At
throw
Pikes. It was at Pikes Place Market, yeah.
And she's watching the salmon being thrown around.
Yep.
And they're just winging these 30, 40-pound fish over each other from stall to stall. And there was a sign above one of the booths, and it said, if failing was impossible, what would you do? And that stuck with me, which is, what are the reasons why you're afraid to do something? And when she went up to that booth, she went back a few mornings in a row, and she was like, I'm really struck by this sign. And the guy said, yeah, this is what I want to do. I wanted to do this. And I was on a different path, but my passion wasn't there, and this is really what I wanted to do. So he asked her, and she was stumped. She didn't know. If failure wasn't possible, because that tends to be the reason why you don't do it. It's like, I'll probably fail. I'll either fail to provide for the family, I'll fail to get a job, I'll fail to be good at it, whatever it is. So when posed with that, if failure is impossible, what would you do? It was a completely liberating idea.
Absolutely.
Fail. Or fear.
Yeah.
No, which one is it? Fail?
I think it's the fear of
Failing.
the possibility of failing.
Okay.
Yep. And it took her a couple times of coming back to that sign to really realize how much she was limiting herself because of what she thought she would fail at. And so when you think about it, if you could take the possibility of failure off the table, what would you do? And it got me. Now I end up doing exactly the same thing I was doing before, and went for the same type of a job, so it didn't change my path. But it got me to think differently of am I limiting myself on the things that I'm afraid to do because I would fail?
So what would it be?
I don't know if I know yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know yet. I think I'm still discovering what it could be.
Well, that's probably what makes you an interesting human.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people that end up deciding this is what I'm going to be forever and ever and ever. I don't know. I sometimes don't find those folks to be terribly interesting because there's no discovery, there's no exploration, there's no adventure. It's just kind of like, this is what I do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, I think I feel like we are trained, going back to, I think, something what you were saying, Elton, right? We're trained or programmed that we should know. Right, so it's kind of it's kind of the imposter syndrome, right? Where you're like, when are they going to figure out that I don't know what the hell I'm doing? And so, I think that instills a little bit of that fear, right, or that fear of failure. Because I think we are kind of groomed to always look and appear as though we actually have our shit together, right? Think about it, right? Yeah. We're new roles, right? You are new roles. You're going through some transition and into a new role eventually. And I mean, I think it's the same. I mean, I think that's what I took from this last experience that I just had, that where I'm at now. It's like, okay, if I fail, I fail. And I think it's the, going back to what you were talking about, is it if failure was off the table, or is it more about getting comfortable with failure and that failure is okay?
Good question. I think that those are two very different questions.
And I think it depends on the person and where they are, right?
I would agree. I guess my challenge to that would be does it matter who the person is, and is that how it should be?
Well, I mean, it likely depends on how much they have to lose.
So put it in the framework of your kids, who we all want better for than us. Is it about wanting them to not be afraid of failure? I want my kids to be comfortable trying anything that's safe anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you don't get dinged in life for failing. you miss out when you don't try things, right?
Right. Yeah.
From all of us Bourbon Boys, we want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Bourbon on.